Hello and welcome. In a continent where politics influences almost everything, Africa finds itself faced with a complicated set of complex challenges now more than ever. The new year may just be 19 days old, but Africa finds itself at crossroads between repeating mistakes of the past and redeeming hope for the future. This is Africa This Week, and I'm your guide, Fadishola Shotingwa. We start off the day with earlier in the week. Welcome on board. The Nigerian government on Monday summoned the U.S. ambassador to Nigeria, Stuart Symington, to explain the vulgar remarks made by President Donald Trump on African countries. Spokesman of the Nigeria's Foreign Affairs Ministry, Tope Elias Fatile, disclosed this via a message to reporters covering the ministry, where he said the U.S. diplomat is to meet Nigeria's foreign ministry officials. On Tuesday, 3 people were feared dead and others abducted in a fresh attack by Boko Haram insurgents on Palam community in Madagali local government area of Adamawa State. The attack came barely a week after the terrorists launched a similar attack on neighboring Wanu, Kamale and Kafing Hausa communities of Michika and Madagali areas. Palam is the hometown of the Deputy Speaker of the Adamawa State House of Assembly, Emmanuel Samdu. Fleeing residents said the onslaught lasted for about 5 hours. And according to residents, the attackers sneaked into Palam at about 11 p.m. and started shooting, killing and burning houses. When contacted, police spokesman in the state, Othman Abubakar, said he was yet to be briefed on the development. Nigeria's Vice President Yemi Osinbajo on Wednesday charged African leaders to pursue an economic model which translates growth to improved living standards of the people. He disclosed this at Harvard Business School, where he delivered a keynote on Africa Rising, understanding business entrepreneurship and the complexities of a continent, to a gathering of scholars, professionals, faculty, alumni and students of African ancestry. Osinbajo said social safety nets have become necessary, citing Nigeria's more than 500 billion naira social investment program.
So indeed, for Africa Rising to mean anything to the majority of our people, these issues must be addressed. And not on paper, not in classrooms, but on the ground, in homes, in communities, in the wallets and purses, as they say, of the most vulnerable citizens. As President Buhari put it in September 2017, when our National Bureau of Statistics announced that Nigeria had emerged from recession, he said until coming out of recession translates into meaningful improvement in the lives of our people, work cannot be said to be done. And I think we ought to say the same about Africa Rising until our citizens have themselves acknowledged the rising, especially in the quality of their lives. Our work as governments and policymakers is very far from being done.
And still on Wednesday, the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, raised alarm over threats to the success of the ongoing evacuation of Nigerians from Libya. The agency laments that the reception center for the returnees is gradually getting overcrowded due to failure of some state governments to evacuate the returnees from Port Harcourt to their respective states.
It's been 2 weeks since the first batch of Nigerian migrants arrived at the Port Harcourt International Airport from Libya via the country's capital, Tripoli. And it's been 1 week since the third batch arrived. Since then, the returnees have been sheltered at the Hajj camp located only few minutes away on foot from the airport's runway. With more arrivals being expected, NEMA fears that yet another emergency of an overpopulated reception center stares the agency in the face.
Most of the states in the first and second batch are from the southwest. And I think personally it will be unethical to start mentioning the states, but they are from the southwest. However, luckily today, as I'm talking to you, the State Emergency Management Agency delegation from Ogun State has finalized every arrangement to move their people. So we are now dealing with Osun State and Ondo State. So if those two states respond now, that means that we must have dealt with the first and second batch. So, but in the third batch, it is only Edo and Delta that have completely moved their people. So we are looking at other states, about 15 other states who are yet to come.
NEMA commended state governments that have so far responded, but appealed for rapid response from those state governments who haven't.
Edo State has shown a very good example. For each of the batches that come, Edo State have acted swiftly in taking their people away from the reception center. However, the response has been slow. And because it is slow, it is affecting the efficiency of the evacuation program. What do I mean by this? The cost effectiveness is that if states are not picking their people, it adds to feeding costs. It adds to retention costs. It adds to cost of security. So these are issues that are facing us and staring us at the face. You can see that if the first batch, we still have spillover from them and have spillover from the second batch, that means we have double trouble.
In the last 2 weeks, 1,490 Nigerians have been evacuated from Libya, while an additional 3,547 are being expected. By the end of the exercise, 5,037 Nigerians are expected to have returned home. Uche Okoro, TVC News, Port Harcourt.
And on Thursday, the Federal High Court in Abuja dismissed the application by the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB's request to reverse the court's order prescribing it and designating it a terrorist organization. Delivering his ruling on IPOB's application, the acting Chief Judge of the Federal High Court, Justice Abdul Kafarati, resolved all the three formulated issues against the group and held that September the 20th, 2017 prescription order was validly issued. He dismissed the contention of IPOB's lawyer Ifeanyi Ejiofor, who submitted that IPOB, not being registered in Nigeria but only registered in some other countries, could not be sued in Nigeria. The judge also held that the issuance of the prescription order by him in chambers following an ex parte application was in accordance with the provisions of the Terrorism Prevention Act. On Friday, Kenya's health minister affirmed investigation of the claims that new mothers were sexually assaulted at the Kenyatta National Hospital in Nairobi. Social media posts alleged that male staff members targeted the women when they went to feed their babies. But management of the hospital have since denied the claims and have asked anyone with evidence to pass it to the hospital or the police. Health Minister Cleopa Mailu said he wanted a report into the allegations. Still on Friday, a senior United Nations official warned that the current civil war in South Sudan is badly affecting children and wants more to be done as they battle serious illnesses. South Sudan split from its northern neighbor, Sudan, in 2011 and has been gripped by a 4-year civil war sparked by political rivalry between incumbent leader Salva Kiir and his former deputy Riek Machar. The conflict has left children sick, hungry, and on the brink of death. UNICEF Executive Director Henrietta Fore said after visiting some of the areas most devastated by the war. It is estimated that tens of thousands have died in the conflict, which has also displaced a quarter of the country's population of 12 million.
For children, it's been a horrendous time. The violence has led to losing family members. It's led to being separated from other family members, long journeys across the country where they've just lived on grass or water lilies. So it's a time when we can really help the children of South Sudan, and the world needs to pay attention to that.
And with that, we have come to the end of Earlier in the Week. Up next is Digging Deep, but that will be after the break. Do stay with us. Welcome back to Africa This Week. Well, call him the disruptive commander-in-chief or the accidental leader of the free world, if you like. But Africa and the rest of the globe have said more than a handful to deal with since Donald Trump became the 45th president of the United States. For as old as anyone can remember, the region has often found itself on the spotlight, subject to dark narratives and degrading stereotypes, not until Trump recently took it a notch higher, literally referring to Africa as a conglomerate of shithole countries. Joining me to dig deep on Africa This Week is Ifa Maberu, a historian and the coordinator of Pan-African Consciousness Renaissance. Thank you for joining me on Africa This Week. Very quickly and straight to the point, what's your reaction to the shithole remark?
Well, let me say that the statement by the sitting president of the United Snakes of America is not accidental, because for us, we understand the fact that both, past presidents of the United Snakes of America, that country, have made similar references, have made similar statements. Well, I think the only thing I think is peculiar about the statement of Donald Trump is that, it was well articulated and he was serious about it. What I'm saying in essence is that Donald Trump stands as a perfect candidate of the spokesman of white supremacy. And I'm saying this because past presidents of that country have made similar references, statements as to
but the world doesn't agree with that. The world doesn't remember that. That's
correct.
They only see Trump as the only one.
That's correct. Well, like I said earlier on, Trump has been outspoken. So you have got to give it to him. Being the spokesman, the current spokesman of white supremacy. And it is important for us to understand that racism, the way in which we understand racism, and I think which is the good thing about his statement, it has made us understand that racism is beyond mere insult and what have you. Because I've said this sometimes ago, that racism is about having the economic power, having the political power to sabotage others, from going to where they needed to go as a people. So that is it. He had made the comment, he had made the statement, but nothing had changed. Nothing had changed for him himself. So we begin to understand that it is the question of racism having that importance to our own existence as a people. And that's why we are critically against that statement. But, we are critically against Donald Trump for that statement because we understand the fact that it is the norm in the American society.
Well, talking about racism now, let's look at that point. Do you describe Trump as a racist or a racially uninformed person?
Actually, the only set of people that can stand out today to be the right candidates of racist are white people. And, I said this because, I made reference to what racism is to us. Racism means the ability to have that economic power to sabotage others from getting to where they need to get to. And you would see that the only set of people on planet Earth today that have that power, that have that wherewithal to sabotage people from going to where they need to go are primarily white people. And, Trump, exactly, like I said earlier, stand as a perfect candidate.
Yeah.
It's an embodiment of white supremacy. It's an embodiment of what racism is all about. So the only set of people, no African, no matter how much wealth you've been able to acquire, no African, no black person, as it stands today, have that capacity to be a racist. So the only set of people that could be racist on planet Earth today are clearly white people and perhaps others, the Arabs and what have you.
Well, with the huge infrastructural deficit we have in Africa and the rate of illegal migrants from Africa to Europe and America, are you not a little bit tempted to agree with him?
Well, like I said earlier on, you have got to, put the statement within the right perspective and context. You see, when he made that statement, we're critically against that statement because it is, it involves racism, it is racially inclined and what have you.
Yeah.
But assess the message. When you begin to assess the message, you would see that there's a bit of truism in that message.
And not the messenger. No.
And well, I'm also interested in the messenger.
Oh, I see.
I'm interested in the messenger because the messenger or the ancestors of the messenger are partly involved or are partly responsible for what is happening within the African continent today. And you see, it is not
the
just
state we find ourselves.
Exactly, they are responsible. The United Snakes of America is responsible for how backward Libya is today. So they are not in any moral position to be using such words against any country because they've not created hell, you know, in most of these countries. And yet they are trying to, you know, claim that they are innocent. It's just like the situation wherein you have a bird, you detach the entirety of the feathers of that bird, and you are blaming that bird for not flying like other birds. That's hypocritical.
Is that a fair assessment to,
yes, it is.
To blame America and the rest of the...
Oh, historically, you see, you take a look at Congo, for instance. Since the assassination of Patrice Lumumba, Congo had stopped being what a country, what you can call a perfect society. Look at Congo now. Congo is about the most richest, you know, country on planet Earth, but that country is also the most violent. And you cannot, you know, dispute the fact that America, you know, actually was responsible for the assassination of Patrice Lumumba. So whenever you have good leaders on our planet, they destroy them and they give us all of these puppets, you know, because they need to control them, because by controlling them, they will control the resources. So the statement by Trump is apt. This continent is nothing to write home about. And it is also the same reality in most climes, even in the American society, for instance. There's a huge disparity between the rich and the poor. And of course, most of the poor people in the United States of America are black people. But then look at the statement. Look at Nigeria, for instance. You know, quite a lot of our people were killed in Benue and are still being killed in Benue, and you have a city president who is yet to come up with a well-articulated statement in regards to that.
We're not going to digress here now.
Now I'm just pointing out that the problem of leadership also gives leeway for all of these racist elements to make such comments.
Let's look at this now. What's the implication of this development, this tagging us shithole countries in relation vis-a-vis the relationship between the American interest around the African continent?
Like I said earlier, I don't think it's going to stop anything. It is not going to stop American interest from, you know, having more advantages and holding more sway. Yeah, but for us, we are critically against it because it has a direct effect to our own self-esteem as human beings, our own self-esteem as Africans, as black people. You know, it's critically against our own dignity. And that's why when we speak about what had happened, say, you know, 100 years ago in terms of slavery and what have you, we speak about it because the first thing that was destroyed was our own human dignity. And the destruction of our own human dignity is still a continuum. You would see it with the references with the statement of Trump. So it won't stop the American interest for holding sway. As a matter of fact, it is going to give more leeway because you now have all of these elements who are then thinking perhaps they could try as much as possible to make their way to the interests of the American president because of, you know, what America stands to be in the international system. But I really don't think it's going to affect American interest a bit within the African continent because the American state, for instance, they have their own military base within the continent. In Somalia, they have the AFRICOM. In Sudan, they have the AFRICOM and what have you. And no sitting president, which I think it is hypocritical, or for them, the AU and several other African leaders to be against what Trump said. Because none of them is trying to get rid of the AFRICOM. None of them is trying to get rid of the US military base within the continent. So how dare you then speak about Trump's statement or what have you? I think that is just too childish for me to think about.
Great perspectives there. But you mentioned poor leadership on the African continent. How can Africa then, as a nation, begin to rewrite the script, you know, against every form of stereotype or prejudice already formed?
It's so simple. By getting rid of these so-called African leaders, you know, these puppets of white supremacy, this puppet of the Western society, because they've brought shame to us, you know, because I cannot really imagine a situation wherein...
Puppets.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I can't imagine a situation where I'm living in a society, my life is being threatened, I'm being haunted on a daily basis, and those that are in charge of affairs, those are the helm of affairs, aren't saying anything in regards to the killings, aren't saying anything about my own safety. I mean, that shows that they've clearly dishonored the social contract agreement, which says that whatever government you have on board must first guarantee the safety, the security of our citizens. But this continent, you have several African leaders who have no respect whatsoever for their citizens. So I think the first thing that we need to do is to get rid of these African leaders and, of course, change the system because it's also a systematic problem. We have all of these backward leaders clearly because the system has made it possible for them to be there. You know, so we must get rid of the system. We must get rid of the political system. We must get rid of the economic system that has made it possible for us to be ruled by these fools.
Well, in response to this remark now, Africa African countries took to summoning the United States representative in their country, what was that supposed to have changed?
Nothing.
Absolutely.
It's not going to change anything. Don't forget that AU wrote a statement, to criticize what Donald Trump said. Did Donald Trump even react to it? Did he even reply? No. Did any American politician reply to that? No. Meaning they don't even think about what if they, I mean, they don't see what you've written as a threat. What that means is the importance of political and economic power.
But I also saw something online where all the past representatives in African countries actually signed a document telling Trump that basically Africa is not a shithole as he has described it.
Trump is not going to reply. Yes, I'm saying that, you see, it means nothing to them. You see, for you to be able to gain attention in the international system, you must have the economic wherewithal. You must have the political wherewithal. And clearly, this continent, no existing African leader is an epitome of economic power, is an epitome of political power. So no matter how much they criticize what Trump said, nothing is going to change. Trump is not going to be apologetic. And I think I need to say this also, because after the statement, several past American presidents criticized him, Obama criticized him, but Obama is also an hypocrite, because Obama is responsible for how backward Libya is today. Bill Clinton also did that. But Bill Clinton is also an hypocrite because they are responsible for what is happening in Haiti. You know, they destroyed Haiti, they made Haiti ungovernable. Haiti. And yet they are trying to, you know, criticize that country for what it is. So you begin to see that it is a system that is governed or that is surrounded by hypocritical elements. Those that come, you know, pride themselves as, you know, leading elements within the international system, but they are as backward as hell at the same time. So the statement is not going to change anything. The AU is not going to change anything.
Ifeoma Beru, I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there. Ifeoma Beru, historian and the coordinator Pan-African Consciousness Renaissance. Thank you for joining me on Africa This Week.
Thank you for having me.
Well, at the risk of either sounding racist or xenophobic, Trump's vulgar comments about migrants from Africa largely look a reflection of his personal opinion, where alternative fact seems to have taken the place of undeniable hope. There is no better than now for Africa to stop playing catch-up and rise up to the challenges where it takes good governance and strong institutions to ensure a sustainable development for all. I have been your guide, Fadishola Shotunwa. Many thanks for watching, and bye for now.